All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the LOCKBOX, Arizona's #1 brother and sister real estate team. For those of you that listen to the podcast, thanks for making us Arizona's #1 lifestyle and real estate podcast. For those of you viewing it, we're relatively new to the views, so our guest today is like the second person for the live TV.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
So it'll be great. Real quick, before we introduce you to this awesome person, you guys are going to love it today. First of all, podcast is possible because of you guys. You've made it #1. We appreciate that. Arizona housing market is hot. Arizona is still the hottest place to move. And today we're going to kind of focus a little bit on Scottsdale. And now Scottsdale feeds into Cave Creek, Carefree, but more importantly, Scottsdale, as you know from past podcasts, that's where I grew up. And growing up on a big horse ranch back in the 70s and 80s, which I'm not that old, but in the 70s and 80s, Shea Boulevard was a 2-lane road. Grew up out there and had to take Scottsdale and Shea had Crystal Pistol, and then if you wanted to go for a steak, you had to go to Pinnacle Peak, which is now out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so things are going fantastic. And for those of you that are thinking about buying and selling, it is a great time to do it. Stop listening to the media about, rates are too high. The fact is that we do live in the greatest place in the country.
That's right.
Maybe the world.
That's right. We do.
And and like we talked about in some other podcasts, every area has a different personality. So it is really, really important that you guys get involved. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get into politics, and we don't get into the politics on the show here, not totally. But you don't have to get into politics, but you have to kind of just be aware of what's going on. You have to, if you're going to schools, you got to know who your school board people are. You have to know who your city council members are, your, Chamber of Commerce, little things like that. That is going to affect your house values 100%. Right? So today we are very excited. So JAN DUBAUSKAS. She has
Dubauskas.
See, I've been writing it all week. It's wrong. Dubauskas, right?
Dubauskas, yes.
So JAN is running for Scottsdale City Council.
That's right.
Now, why is she running for City Council? We're going to find out. But first, JAN, tell us about you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it today.
We've known you for a while, so your family's awesome.
For a while. So I'm a lawyer, a wife, a mom. I went to undergrad University of Oregon and worked in Oregon for about 6 months. And then I thought, I need some sunshine. And did some analysis. And Arizona has 300 days of sun per year. The cost of living is low. The wages are high comparatively. And so I packed up my car. I literally took the legs off of my dining room table and put them in the back of my Jetta, and I drove down to Arizona in December of 1998.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a big adventure at that time. But I was excited to be here. I was excited to be in a city that was growing, that felt like anything was possible. And so I've just grown to love Arizona. So I've been here since 1998. I went to law school at Arizona State University College of Law. It had always been my dream to go to law school, and so I did that. I have a boy who's now 21.
Wow.
And he was kind of sick when I was pregnant with him, and so that made me stay home. And then I said, gosh, I've always wanted to go to law school. So I took the LSAT, and I got a great score, and I got into law school and took him to school with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were dedicated.
I was a dedicated mom. And then I worked in the corporate world. My first job was at U-Haul. Working in their legal department, and then they have an insurance company, so I transitioned into insurance. I worked in insurance for many, many years, general counsel, chief operations officer for health insurance companies. And then I decided, health insurance is not really getting very much news. They're not talking about it a lot. So I thought, why can't we do that? And I said to the CEO, is it okay if I reach out to some newspapers, Wall Street Journal, New York Times? And he said, well, you're general counsel. If anybody's going to know what to say, it's you. So if you Google me, you'll see I've been quoted in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I've been on Fox News, Newsmax. I have articles on Fox Business, Forbes magazine, all that fun stuff, and was really enjoying all of that. And in the meantime, I met my husband, and we started our family. So we have a blended family. So I mentioned my son. He has 2 daughters. Together, we have 2 little girls. They're 7 and 8 years old.
They're super cute. Our son loves them.
Yeah,
absolutely loves
they
them.
Play together. Yeah, and they're in public school. And I think that's important to live in a neighborhood where you feel like comfortable having your kids in the school. So exactly what you said. That's one of the things that we looked for in Scottsdale. And, we just noticed that Scottsdale started to change a little bit over time.
Well, okay, so going back to when you started in Tempe?
I first moved to Arizona, and I lived on Bell and Tatum.
Wow, it was the horse ranches there.
Before the 51 was finished, and you had to get off on Shea and drive up Tatum to get to Bell.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So it was horse ranches, folks. It is all houses now.
That's right.
So a lot of people say Scottsdale is kind of like, that's what I strive to do. I want to live in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
So where did you go from there?
From North Phoenix, I went to Central Phoenix.
Okay.
And I lived in Central Phoenix for a few years. And then I moved to Scottsdale in an apartment complex. We were the very first people to move into this apartment. And then my ex-husband and I decided to get married, and he wanted to buy a house. And in all fairness, we looked in Greyhawk.
Right.
This is early 2000s. And the houses were expensive.
Right.
And so we moved to Chandler, where we could get more house for our money. And it took me many years to work my way into being able to be a homeowner in Scottsdale.
And do you think that's kind of a goal, is to live in Scottsdale?
Absolutely.
So people call and they're like, well, what's the difference between Laveen and Scottsdale and Phoenix? And listen, they're all great areas, but Scottsdale.
Scottsdale is Scottsdale. Nationwide, everyone knows Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a gem of the state. It's a gem, I think, of the United States. We're one of the really rare cities in that we have the largest urban park in the United States, 36 times the size of Central Park. It's huge. The McDowell-Sonoran Preserve, we had the foresight to go ahead and do that. So the largest urban park in the United States, lots of open space. We have the largest sporting event in the United States. The Waste Management Open brings 500,000 people on Saturday alone. The next largest sporting event is NASCAR with 250,000 people. So everybody comes to Scottsdale.
And what about the premier events? We've got Barrett-Jackson.
We've got the Arabian Show. Absolutely. So we've got our super season January through about now in April when it starts to warm up. But we're one of 3 cities in the United States that owns our own water treatment plant. We have the most advanced water treatment plant in the United States. So we are water secure, and we're thoughtful about our infrastructure. So Scottsdale is not only a great tourist destination, 10 million people a year, but the infrastructure of the city is designed to take really good care of the residents.
So you live more North Scottsdale.
I do. Well, Scottsdale is 31 miles long.
Correct.
And I live in DC Ranch, which is technically right in the middle.
No, exactly.
All right, but we call that North Scottsdale.
So this will bring us to our next little point, because we've talked to other people before, and our current city council, there's a couple great people on there.
Yes.
But there's a couple that have no clue. And this is why I wanted Jan on here, so you can meet the kind of people that you want to represent you. She realizes that Scottsdale is not downtown Scottsdale. There's different personalities. You have South Scottsdale, Central, and North.
That's right.
As a running for city council, you recognize that. So how do you reach out to the public to discuss all the different needs and wants?
That's a great question. So in Old Town Scottsdale, which is, all the tourists love Old Town Scottsdale. In any tourist magazine, the very first picture of Scottsdale you're going to see is a picture of Old Town, the galleries, the arts district, all that good stuff. That area brings in a lot of short-term rentals. So in that area, 70% of the city's short-term rentals are concentrated in Old Town. So that's an issue that's really focused on those homeowners and those residents. Where in Central Scottsdale, they're starting to deal with a lot of building. The Shea Corridor, a lot of apartments, a lot of senior living facilities are saying, wow, this was sort of a sleepy area, and now we're starting to get traffic congested. We're starting to see a little bit more crime. And so they want to talk about that. Up in North Scottsdale, folks are saying, hey, leave us alone, right? At the same time, we've got Pima is widening because there is some development going in up there. And one of the other things is that some commercial centers are thinking, gosh, wouldn't you guys like a grocery store? Wouldn't you like a gas station up here? And so the residents are saying, maybe we want one thing, but not another. We chose to live in a rural area. We understand we're going to have to drive a little further for AJ's. And so those residents are contemplating very different things than the residents in the South of Scottsdale. which is part of what makes it such an interesting and unique city.
No,
All that
absolutely,
difference. Yeah.
absolutely. So you're leaving a high-paying job to run for a job, and it's a full-time job
Yes.
to be on city council.
Yes.
I mean, what's the drive behind it? Because now you're giving up a high salary to take a very minimum salary and take a lot. Hey, I've been to some of those meetings, and so I wouldn't want to be in there.
Yeah, I hear you. But, you know, when the city is run, it should be run like a business.
Right.
And so it shouldn't be, you know, any sort of a contentious thing. It should be, what's the right thing for this area? What's the level of traffic? Should we be updating this road? And so those are some interesting questions. But, you know, when my son was 10 years old is when I first moved into Scottsdale, into DC Ranch. And we were living in a high-rise condo in Central Phoenix. And I thought it was the greatest thing. I could walk all over the Biltmore area. I loved it. But, you know, my son, he couldn't ride his bike by himself.
Right.
I had to drop him off at school and watch him go into the school. I'd pick him up at the end of the day. He had no personal freedom as a kid. I would walk him down to the park with his bike, and he would ride his bike in a circle. And then I would say, okay, I'm bored now watching you ride your bike in a circle. And so we go back up in the condo and leave his bike upstairs. When we moved to DC Ranch, he was able to ride his bike to school. For the first
DC
time
Ranch
ever.
Has miles and miles of trails.
Of walking paths,
Right.
right? And trails. And so I was a little nervous. The kid's just ridden in a circle. We need to make sure that he can ride his bike to school. And so we did a test run. And on his first test run, he did run into a cactus. 10 years old. You know, any 10-year-old boy you would think could ride a bike really well, but it's hard when you've only ridden in a circle. So after a couple of weeks, I said to him, Trav, you know, how are you feeling? I thought, this is really remote for him, all new friends. He's like, Mom, this is the best place ever. He's like, I ride to school. I can ride the bike over to Safeway and buy candy, and there's nothing you can do about it. He's like, I love living here. That wasn't what I expected. I thought that he wouldn't like the difference. But he said, no, there's so much more independence up here. And then now with my little girls, they're 7 and 8, I don't feel so comfortable leaving them to play in the front yard as I used to.
Really?
Right.
Even in DC Ranch.
Even in DC Ranch, we've had all those dinner time burglaries.
Right.
Right. And so the Scottsdale Police Department has stepped up in a huge way.
They have. And we do have to give a shout out to the Scottsdale Police. You guys have been doing a fantastic job.
Fantastic. But I think all over the valley, we could say that crime has changed.
Right.
The cities, the demographics, things have changed a little bit. And so, so that's part of what drove me to want to run for city council is I have these little girls that I want them to be safe and be confident and be comfortable and live their lives in Scottsdale and think that this is the best place to live. And so that's why I wanted to be on council, to protect Scottsdale for our kids.
Absolutely. Well, and you're proud of Scottsdale.
Of course.
So you want other people to share in the same experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So going back to the different areas, some of the city council members, you know, they think it's a big city, which it is.
Yeah.
But how are you going to recognize that, okay, South Scottsdale, like McDowell, Thomas area, needs different things than, let's say, Dynamite and Scottsdale Road?
Right. Yeah. So speaking of which, Dynamite and Scottsdale Road, does anybody want a roundabout?
No, we don't.
On Dynamite and Scottsdale Road?
It's already high speed. It's
high
crazy.
Speed, and they've got a 4-way stoplight there, right? City Council just this past week voted in a roundabout on Scottsdale Road and Dynamite.
So this is kind of what we're getting
That's
at.
something that's out of touch, right? That's something
Right.
that belongs in a different area of
Absolutely.
town.
Absolutely. And as a city council member, you're going to bring the experience of living up north. The last lady that was on city council lived up by you, and she just never really represented the people that kind of live north of the 101.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to bring that to city council.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I think part of what is our value proposition for the city is our Old Town. I think that Old Town, like we said, it's on the very first picture of every tourist magazine is a picture of Old Town and all those cute shops. We need to value that. We need to keep it as nice and fresh and help those businesses down there, because that's part of what makes Scottsdale thrive. And that's part of what fuels our tourism, people coming to our golf courses, people going to our spas. And that's part of what keeps our taxes down.
Right.
So when we have tourism coming in, they're helping to pay for the roads through the sales taxes. And so we want to make sure that we have the proper balance and that we respect Old Town is an important integral part of our city, where these more residential areas, they play another role in that we have people who love Scottsdale, who stay here, who live here, who want to be part of our community. We're blessed with a really robust volunteer community.
Yep.
The preserve has over 1,000 volunteers who help keep the preserve clean. They help keep the trails going. We have volunteers that are in Old Town area and help guide you, if you're looking for certain galleries, things like that. I'm doing a citywide cleanup as part of the city on April 27 as part of Earth Day. We're going to have a bunch of volunteers picking up trash along the side of the road. So if you're driving around in Scottsdale and you see people picking up trash, that's part of what that is a robust volunteer community, because everybody's proud of Scottsdale and wants to do what they can to help keep it beautiful.
Well, so as a city council member, or soon to be,
yes,
how are you going to get the residents involved in the decision-making processes? Because right now, and it's not necessarily true, but it's kind of, it seems like the city council and the mayor just kind of do their own thing without talking to people. How are you going to get the residents involved and make them feel like they have part of the decision?
Yeah, so part of that is just communication. So it's that regular ongoing communication. Once you get in office, it's really easy to stop communicating and just do the work. Put your head down and do the work. But the reality is that we represent you. We represent all of the residents of Scottsdale. And so our job is not only to do that work, but to check in with you and to find out, how do you feel about roundabouts? Do you like them? Do you not like them? And what do you think about the one that's going in that they're planning on right here? Let's get your resident feedback, and then let's respect that. There's a movement that has been going on with City Council to narrow roads, take a lane out and put a bike lane in, and that's called a road diet. And so I went, of course, a year ago, there was a meeting about it, and hundreds of residents showed up to the meeting. Typically, we have about 15 people. So when hundreds of residents show up, they're really motivated. Many hundred more sent in emails to the city council. And one of the councilmen who was in favor of road diets actually sat up on the dais. Yeah, there's a couple hundred of you here. Yeah, I got a few hundred emails. But there's 240,000 people in Scottsdale, so I'm not worried about your opinion. What?
That is crazy.
What?
Because every opinion actually matters, even if it's a dumb one.
It's your job to represent these people. So you don't get to dismiss their views. What you need to do is sit down and figure out why. And if they're right, they might be right.
Now working with the city council and stuff, how do you feel? I mean, I know you're going to get along with them, but for those of you that know Jan, she does have an opinion, and it's always backed by facts.
Thank you.
So how do you think you'll get along with them when they just kind of put their heads down and don't want to hear from anybody?
You know what? As a lawyer, it's my job to be persuasive.
Okay.
And if I think if we have the winning side of an argument, we're going to have all the facts lined out. We're going to have all of the feedback from the residents that's going to support the argument. And I think it's going to be really hard to fight against it. Someone might choose to, but for us, it's important to communicate not only with residents, but then to each other. And it may be that your fellow councilman has another idea, and maybe you could tweak it a little bit and come to a better solution. So I think we just need to keep talking to each other and not have those walls, but let's put the best interests of Scottsdale first. And then when we do that, I think we're going to come to the best solutions possible.
Absolutely. Now, Scottsdale is also home to many second residents.
Yes.
How do you contend with that?
Yes. We love all of our residents, and we take care of every single one. Snowbird season is a really big thing around here. We have a lot of people from the Midwest. We have people that come in from California. And we have a lot of volunteers that are snowbirds. They want to be invested in the community, and they want to see that we're invested in them. So I love it. We have a citizens academies, a government academy, a police academy, a water academy. I've seen snowbirds participate in those academies. They love Scottsdale. A lot of snowbirds end up deciding to move to Scottsdale full time.
They do.
Yeah, because Scottsdale is amazing. So, we just think of them as part-time today, but maybe full-time tomorrow.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And as Arizona's #1 brother and sister real estate team, the GRANDON GROUP, we a lot of politicians, and she is not a politician by any means, but a lot of the politicians are talking about affordable housing, and they never give you an answer what that is. Now, personally, living in Scottsdale should be a reward. So what's your thoughts on, and there's a couple of places here that have, where they put some people in there that shouldn't be here, but what's your thoughts on affordable housing in Scottsdale?
Sure. It's a really tough problem, and we haven't come to a solution on it yet. The legislature in Arizona is working on a bill that would allow ADUs, affordable dwelling, maybe it's not affordable, an ADU. It's a dwelling unit that you could put in the back of your home. And so someone could rent that out. That'd be more affordable. I don't think building more apartment complexes is the right solution. We've got Optima going up on Scottsdale Road in the 101, and we all know Optima is not so affordable.
And they're taking away some of the best views.
That's true. That's true. The park was just approved in place of Cracker Jacks. That's going to be 1,200 apartments right in the heart of the quarter in Kierland, right next to Optima.
The new Old Town.
Yeah.
It could be the new Old Town. It's the new downtown for sure.
So I don't think more apartments is just the solution, because these are apartments that are at least $2,000 a month, right? So that's not really it. I like the idea of these ADUs, and I think we need to get together and work on it as a group, and then see if we can't come up with some solutions. But the truth is that there is a higher cost of living.
No, absolutely.
In Scottsdale now.
And we bust our rears to be able to live in Scottsdale. So not discounting anything, but I do think, and I'm not expecting her to answer this, my personal opinion, you need to work to live in Scottsdale. So I don't want somebody who's just, their dream is to be the manager of a Circle K, and that's as far as they want to go. We have high expectations, right?
Yes. At the same time, our 26-year-old, she just bought a condo in Central Scottsdale.
That's fantastic.
Right? So there is housing for everyone.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
So we'll get to one more question, because this one came through when I mentioned that she was coming on the show.
Oh.
So this is good, and it's not putting me on the spot, and it's actually a fair question. So what's more important for our city right now, in your opinion? Building new homes and commercial spaces, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
Oh,
that's a good question.
It's a great question. Thank you. I would love to make best use of what we've got right now. We mentioned the Old Town area. I think that could be brushed up. I think we could put some nice paint on that. There's some actual signs, some of the ones with Scottsdale Road on them, that are peeling a little bit. So I think we could brush that up, make that really nice, and really focus on making Scottsdale the best it can be. Because once you've built something, it's really hard to unbuild it. And once you've built on the desert, it's really hard to take that back and rehabilitate it. So I would love to see some projects where maybe we can make some areas better and newer and nice. But at the same time, I always want to focus on home ownership. I think it's important that we emphasize home ownership, whether it's condos or single family homes, because those are people who are invested in Scottsdale. They care about our community, and they want to see the best for not only their home, but the homes around them. And so I love the idea of investing in the people who are already here. Sure.
So, okay. For those of you, I do highly recommend that you guys reach out to Jan. She's very accessible. You're on all social media.
Yep. And my website is jan4scottsdale.com.
Now listen, it's not free to run. So if you're able to donate, even if it's $1 or $5, I do recommend that you guys send her something. And then also show up for some of the events and ask her. You can ask her any questions. And you're always really good about asking it.
Thank you.
And her husband's super cool. So if you see her in a restaurant, just be nice, but he's awesome. You can sit there and talk to her and stuff like that. So Jan, okay, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, jan4scottsdale.com. I'm on all the social media platforms, and I'm super accessible. So I love to chat with people. If you fill out on my website contact form, I'll add you to my newsletter, and you can get that about every other week. Events that are going on, all that good stuff. And if you want to shoot me an email, ask me a question, I would love that too.
No, absolutely. And so from here on out, we're in April.
Yes.
So what's your next steps until November?
So we have a primary in July. And so in the primary, so we're just working hard to get out there and meet with voters and talk with folks. And then it's possible to win outright in the primary. Did you know that?
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll see how we do. If we're able to win outright, wonderful. All we need to be is in the top 6 to go on to the general election.
How many spots are open this year?
There's 3 seats open, 2 incumbents and 1 open seat. So that open seat, that's mine, Scottsdale.
No, and listen, it's really important to vet the people. I mean, they might be your friend and you'll be like, oh, I got to vote for so-and-so, but you really need to get out and vet people that fit your wants and your needs.
Yes.
Wouldn't you think so?
Yes.
And so anyway, so this is Jan. Make sure you guys reach out to her. Her name will be along the bottom of the screen here. For those of you listening to the podcast, it'll be up on the site. You can see that. And thanks. And listen, Scott, we love Scottsdale. Growing up here in Scottsdale, as many of you know, I grew up on a big, giant Arabian horse ranch on 120th and Shea. And so
beautiful.
Wife and kids were raised here. And it's a growing town. And while a lot of us older ones are like, I hate to see all the change, it's really exciting to see the change.
Yes.
So
yes. Yes, it's a great city.
I'm Jason Grandon with the Grandon Group, Arizona's #1 brother and sister real estate team. Make sure you reach out to us. Make sure you guys go on Jan's site. And Jan, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect.
I appreciate you guys.
All right. You
Bye.
guys have a good one.